Hello everybody and welcome to another of my comedians interviews for my blog Arichcomiclife. My name is Richard Gill and my blog describes watching over 800 comedians and counting over the past 45 years. My special guest today is one of my favourite comedians, the wonderful Mr. Josh Baulf. Yes! Hello mate! How are you? You all right?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm just living lockdown life. It's nice to be here.
Good. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes to an hour or so talking about your comedy career.
Yeah.
And I'd like to kick off, go way back, and ask you, when you were growing up, were you introduced to comedy? How did you get into comedy? How did you become a comedian?
Yeah, I was, to be honest with you, Rich. I was a bit of a weird kid. I had like a proper skinhead. I had like train tracks, you know, where they cut the lines into your hair.
Oh yeah.
Like a skinhead. I had pet gerbils. I always like to get into fights, and I like football. I look like their boy from This Is England, you know that? I look like him.
You're not from Carlisle, are you?
Yeah, I was a little hooligan, but I loved sitcoms. Like I love like Only Fools and Horses,
brilliant.
Hours, Vicar Dibley, Blackadder. When I was really young, I was just obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And it's a bit weird, to be honest, Rich, because I was probably like the only 7-year-old boy that like knew Connie Booth's autobiography and like, you know what I mean, John Cleese's writing process. Like I was an odd kid. But through that, I really got into stand-up when I was really young.
Right.
And at the time, it was like, I remember like, it was like Bonnie, it was like Eddie Izzard, Billy Connolly, like those guys were sort of like the older ones, like the 18.
Yeah, yeah.
I sort of sneak and watch them. And then I got into Peter Kay. So Peter Kay was kind of the one I was allowed to watch. And that was like my introduction to stand-up, really. So I became obsessed with Peter Kay. And
I can't get any better.
Say it again?
You can't get any better than Peter Kay.
No, exactly. So that was kind of, I was pretty into it pretty young, yeah.
Good man. So, I mean, I've got all my books and videos and everything behind me, all my comedy books. Peter Kay, I think, is one of the greatest. There's a line between telling stories, telling jokes, and there's another nth degree where you've got Eric Morecambe, Tommy Cooper, Peter Kay's got it, where they just do something, they just do an action or something, and you're laughing at them.
Yes,
it's extraordinary to see, and that's what you achieved too. There is certainly a lot of this style in your comedy that I've seen, because you're very, very natural on stage.
Well, I appreciate that, mate. But no, that's what everyone's aspiring to get to. I mean, with the Peter Kay thing, like you say, like I was 8-9 years old. You know, like I was not from. I think I remember you used to do like bits of material on Bullseye. I'd never seen Bullseye. I had no concept of what Bullseye was. You know what I mean? But it was so funny. Like
don't knock it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that's when you say when you rise above. It's like you're chatting to a 9-year-old boy who's never seen Bullseye, and yet I was like rib laughing. And that's when you go, that's the different level, isn't it, Rich?
Brilliant.
That
is fantastic. So you were bitten by the bug, and you became a stand-up comedian. What did you do before you were a stand-up comic? Did you have a job or? Yeah,
so I've done all sorts. Like my last job was I worked for a company in London, so I moved to London, and because I'm from just outside, and I moved into London. I started working for a company that made like sort of worked in sort of social media and advertising and sales and stuff. And so I worked, and I kind of come to comedy relatively late. Like a lot of people start when they're like 18, 19. I kind of come into it when I was 25.
Right.
Which, I mean, it's not that late, but so I had a few jobs.
And was it a case of going to a pub night, a bit like Birdies, where you had like your 5-minute slots and you took a friend along and that's how you gained the experience? Or did you enter a competition, or did you go to a club, go to a workshop? How did you first start off?
Because a lot of people sort of turn their nose up at it. But I actually did a comedy course. So I had been sort of knocking about the idea for a while, and a friend of mine had started doing open mics and was getting into it, and I was like thinking, you know, like I say, I used to really be into it when I was younger, so I was thinking, I want to do that.
So you did a course?
I did a course, yeah. For me, the course was a case of kind of putting my money where my mouth is. I knew as soon as I'd done it and I committed to it and I put the money into it, there was no backing out. And so I did this Logan Murray course, and do you know Logan?
Yeah. I've never met him, but I've heard a lot about him, and I've heard he's a good egg. He helps a lot of comedians.
Yeah, he's a bit of a legend. Like Gilbert's gone through it, Josh Withercombe, Greg Davis, a lot of guys have gone through that course. So I did the course, and first day, like I had never, when I say never done any public speaking, like never done anything, like not even a best man speech. I'd never done any drama. I'd never done anything. I think when I was a kid, I was in year 5, I was Theseus in the Minotaur.
Oh yeah.
That was the last time I'd done any acting. And I'd been kicked off, I'd been taken off it, right? Because the first day I got too excited, I picked the Minotaur up and I chucked him in the front row. I wasn't allowed to act again. So I've not had. So when I showed up on the first day at this course, it was like improv games, and everyone's, you know, we're pretending we're lamps and we're doing all this stuff. Yeah. It was a really sort of jarring experience. I just wasn't used to it. But I found that I really enjoyed it, and that's what got the ball rolling. And then from there, it just took over, to be honest.
Wow. That it's similar because I had to do I never liked standing up and giving out presentations and everything. One day as a training course, I had to, we were told to teach somebody something. So I showed them the only card trick I ever knew. And of course I stood up and I forgot it. So you've got my utmost respect to get out and have a go and do it.
I did the same thing, Rich, in my first gig. I went blank.
I was just going to ask you about your first gig. Tell me about the experience.
I went blank. I'd learnt it off by heart. I'd learnt my set. Like, because I just spent so long just analysing it, learning it word for word, because I was so scared I was going to do it wrong. And
oh, mate.
I went out, and I even remember, like, before, like, I met up with a few mates, and we were outside the pub, and we just all sat there, like, quietly, just, like, learning our lines, ready to go out on the stage. And when I went out, everything went. It was like quicksand. My brain everything went out my head. And
like a rabbit in headlights.
Yeah, like a rabbit in headlights. But
mate.
Somehow I stumbled through it, and I still got laughs. And I managed to sort of riff and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was a big kind of moment for me, because I was like, oh, it's all right. Like the thing that you're most scared of is like forgetting everything, and I forgot everything, and it was still fine. So,
mate, well, it's all experience. It's all experience. And I think you have to have the difficult comedy gigs to make yourself a better comedian. It's all a learning curve, I can imagine.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. To date, what's been your best and worst gig?
Best and worst gig.
Have you got one?
Best gig?
Yeah.
Best gig was the first time I did the Comedy Store.
Wow.
I don't know about you, Rich, but that's like iconic. That to me is like that was like such a big deal.
That is incredible.
Yeah, when I'd been like when I was thinking of doing stand-up, I never said this like really, but when I was thinking of like when I started doing stand-up, my goal was like I want to perform at the Comedy Store. That's what I want to do. If I can perform at the Comedy Store, then I've done it. And I remember chatting to people, like different people, like on that course and stuff. People saying, you get sort of a time frame of things. It's going to take 4 years. I heard Russell Howard won King Kong after like 4 years, and he got in. So I was thinking 4 or 5 years, I'm going to do the Comedy Store. And about 7 months in, I managed to win the King Kong.
Yeah.
So a couple of months later, I was at the Comedy Store, and that was one of those sort of like pinch yourself moments. I was like that was my goal, was to perform at the Comedy Store. And then I'm on stage at the comedy. It was so surreal. My mum was there.
Oh,
and I've been there when I was younger and stuff. And like my mum used to go when she was a kid and stuff. So like, to me, that's like Leicester Square.
Yeah.
You know, and you walk down the stairs. Yeah, it's just a mad experience. So for me, like that will always be even now when I go down there, it's like I still sort of pinch myself a little bit. Can't believe I'm there. Like
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's the best thing.
And what about the worst?
Oh, there's,
I can't believe there's many.
oh, there's so many. The worst gigs. I've had the worst gigs. So I've had everything. I've been heckled. I've walked off stage. I've had bad gigs. One of them that really was bad, and I don't know if it's like bad to tell this story, but I was this wasn't even that long ago, Rich. Right? So I got booked. I got booked to support Bobby Davro.
Brilliant.
So to be honest with you, I was aware of Bobby Davro, but I didn't. He was kind of my mum and dad's generation.
Yeah.
I didn't know him extensively, right? But
yeah.
I got asked to support him, and I went down there, and it was in Southend, and it was like during a good run of gigs. Okay, so I had like a good run of gigs, and that happens sometimes, where just every gig's banging. So you've got great gigs, great bookings. I go down there, I'm confident, I'm doing tried and tested material, I feel so positive. It's at this beautiful casino, it's on the water, like I'm like, it's great. I walk in, everyone's doled up, it's a Saturday night, a great night, right? I go downstairs and it's in a jazz club. And again, people have paid good money to be there. Like little seats, candles, great. Didn't cross my mind that this would go bad. Sometimes you're walking a gig and you'll sort of look at the room and you think, oh no, this ain't the one. This ain't the one. And this one, I was like, this will be fine. And like I said, I had a great run of gigs. I go on stage, I do the first joke, and it's a tried and tested joke. Nothing.
Oh,
no response. I do the second joke, nothing. I do the third joke, nothing, right? And then I see them start talking to themselves, and they all start sort of turning their chairs and just talking amongst themselves. And I'm on stage just like, right? So then
oh, that must be awful. I don't know why I'm laughing. That must be horrible.
Horrible. And when you're in that space as well, like I said, when you think it's you're confident. There's times when you're doing material and you're not confident, and but I thought it would go well. So I was like, okay, I know what I do. I do crowd work. So I tried to go into the crowd and I do the generic, like, what do you do or where you from? And this lady just looks at me like that. Doesn't say a word. So I ask her again, Richard, and then again, doesn't say a word. So I'm like, okay, just move on.
Yeah.
Ask the lady at the back of the room.
Do it and go.
Yeah, just move on. Ask the lady at the back of the room. She's like, oh, we don't like your swearing. We don't like your swearing. I don't swear much in my head, right? But like I say, I didn't know much about Bobby Davro. So in my head, I'm like, oh no, I've been booked for the wrong gig. Like, this is PG-13. Like, I shouldn't be swearing. Anyway, go on and on. I just die. Like, I've never died before. Like, not a single laugh for 20 minutes. Yeah?
Oh, mate.
I come on stage and someone goes, oh, Bobby's looking for you. So I'm like, okay.
Bobby and his minders.
And also, it's one of those rooms where there's no back door, you can't get out, there's no backstage. So I have to put my coat on and walk back through the crowd.
Oh,
so like,
no.
Try not to look at people.
Oh, mate.
Out of the crowd, right, Rich, Bobby appears. And he goes, come here, mate. I'm like, all right. Puts his arm. He takes me upstairs. And for 10 minutes, right, he said the nicest things anyone's ever said to me. He was like, you've got it, your material's on point, you're personable, you're likable, you're talented. Don't worry about them. They've paid to come and see me. They're not used to your stuff.
That's fantastic. That's just what you wanted.
Just what I wanted to hear, Rich. Yeah. So I was like, this is amazing. So I was going to leave. He was like, come back downstairs and watch me. So I'm like, okay. So I go downstairs and he has a corner. It's like a little VIP corner. And he's with his friends or whatever. So he puts me with his friends and he gets me a beer. Rich, right? I'm stood there with a beer. He goes on stage and he opens with a song. So he does I think he does like a Tom Jones cover or something.
Yeah.
Does his song. Have you seen his stuff?
I know who he is. I haven't seen him live, but I've seen him on TV do his routines. Yeah.
So he comes out, he does Tom Jones. If I say that was comatose when I was on stage, it was like the real Tom Jones has walked in the room. They're clapping, cheering, girls are flashing their breasts. It was insane.
Brilliant.
And he finishes the song and he goes, ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for my MC. Round of applause. He goes, ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for my opener. Round of applause. He goes, every comedian needs to start somewhere.
Exactly.
And he goes, and every comedian needs an opener. So round of applause again, round of applause again. He goes, I had an opener recently in Manchester. Boy, oh boy, was he bad. But that one, and he points at me, was shit. I'm stood there with my Bobby Davro pint in my Bobby Davro section. All his entourage just stood there like that. Everyone's cheering, way, shit. I was like, honestly, I wanted the ground to swallow.
Oh, mate, no.
I would have jumped off the South MP. I would have done anything.
Oh, God,
so hands down, that's my worst gig.
Oh, mate. Well, your best one, the Comedy Store. The first year I went to the Comedy Store was the first year I came down to London in 1988.
Yeah.
And on the bill was Steve Gribbin, John Maloney was MC, Hattie Heeridge was on the bill. Top of the bill was Charles Fleischer, who you'll have never heard of because he went to Hollywood and voiced Roger Rabbit, so he was never seen again.
Really?
He was a man of a million voices, but I was very pleased to have seen him. And similar to your Bobby Davro story, there's all these old school comedians who I loved, like Jimmy Tarbuck and Bruce Forsyth and everything. We went on holiday when I was 10 to Torquay, and we went to see Tom O'Connor. And this story is pivotal because it determined that I had such a loud laugh because I was sitting in the audience and he come on and he done his patter and I laughed so hard that it actually floored him. He didn't know what else to do.
Really?
So he just kept grinning at me and saying a bit more. Ha! I haven't been to many.
So you've always had the big laugh then?
so it was like, well, yeah, it's a loud, big laugh, you know. And he's like, but he did a thumbs up and walked off. But I put it in my blog. It's noted that it was him that realised that I had this big loud laugh. Anyway, let us move on, my friend. I've seen you many times at Birdie's free comedy gig. Often headlining where you were extremely confident and in my mind absolutely hilarious. I was going bananas every time I saw you. Before you go on the stage, do you suffer from nerves and how do you cope with them if you do?
Yeah, I do. Like if it's a really big gig, I do. Yeah. Birdies is fun. I love Birdies. Like that's Friday night new material, so that you don't get nervous then. That's a good time. That's fun. If it's a really big gig, I do. I don't know. Everyone deals with nerves differently, I think, don't they? I don't know what other people have said to that
similar
one.
Stories. They all. I think you have to have nerves to go on and do it. You know, you have to have a certain degree of them.
I think it just hits you at different times. Like I know from some of my friends and stuff, they'll get nervous, like if they've got a really big gig, like a TV gig or big final or whatever. They'll get nervous like the day of, or even the day before. They might not sleep great, or they can't concentrate that day. They can't eat and stuff like that. About 2 hours before, I'm eating fajitas. I'm like,
let me at them.
I'm drinking Desperados. I'm fine. It's usually for me, like if I do get nervous, it's about half an hour before. But pretty much, and then I can't concentrate. But I just take myself away, get my head in space, and it's fine. Yeah.
And you're away. You were a finalist for the Amused Moose New Comic Award in 2018. Describe that experience, please, of entering a competition and what was it like?
So that was kind of my first one, really. So that was in my first sort of year of doing stand-up. They're fun. They're fun. They're difficult, and they're difficult rooms to negotiate. And there's a lot of politics in the competitions as well, which you don't kind of realise. And there's a lot of background stuff, but it's fun. Yeah, like it's fun. Like so, that Amused Moose final that came. So I started. Like I said, I did the course, and I actually met Louise Atkinson, who's a great comedian.
No, well, she's lovely.
Great.
Yeah.
So I met her on that course, and then we did the sort of first year in comedy together, going to the pubs and doing
brilliant. Yeah.
And we managed to both get into the final up in Edinburgh at the end of our first year.
Yeah.
That was what was really cool about it. It was kind of sort of graduating your first year in comedy with your best mate, and you're both on stage together. So yeah, it was cool, and I had a lot of opportunities come from that, as far as, you know, different things like the Britain's Got Talent thing actually came from.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that later. Yeah.
So it's a great thing, but at the same time, comedy is comedy a competition? I don't know, Rich. I don't know. Have you been to any of them? Have you watched them?
I've been. When I started my blog, Hills Jago from Amused Moose sent me a comment, and she said, I think you would benefit from a half-day writing course, which I went on, and I was with a load of other reviewers, and she came to me very direct, and she said, oh yeah, she said, why are you here again? And I said, well, you invited me, and all I can say is that I'm not a reviewer, I'm not a diarist, I'm not a reporter, I'm a member of the audience out to have a good time, and my blog is an enthuse for all the brave heroes that I think get out there and do it. And she never bothered me again. She said, oh, we like that. so that led to me sitting in being invited to the Edinburgh Amused Moose final, sitting in the audience, marking the acts. I wasn't an official judge, but it was like a free show for me. And the MC there was Ian Smith, and he was fantastic. He had to ad lib whilst all the judges did all the competitions, and I thought to myself, you're right. Is it really a competition? You do get recognised, and I think you're doing it for the exposure. And that cannot be a bad thing, but it's a way of getting comedians onto the circuit. I know a lot of people who have gone through that way, and I don't think it's a bad thing.
No, I've done a few, and I don't think it's a bad thing either. And actually, if you want to talk about bad gigs, Rich, I did the Amused Moose final last year. I headlined it, so they all do all the finalists are there. It's up in Edinburgh. All the finalists do their bit, and then they have a headliner come in who does 10 minutes, and then he goes, and then they do the results. So I go up and I'm expected to do 10 minutes, right? And I go out and no one likes me. So I get
no.
And I don't get a like. I'm like, fine, I'll keep going. Do another 5 minutes, no light. Do another 10 minutes, no light. Now I've burnt through the gold. So 20 minutes. I was on stage, I think, for 35 minutes, just flailing, like no one's flagging me. And I was only getting paid to do 10 minutes. And then at some point, the door
I'm not leaving till they laugh.
It's like, Josh, you can leave now. I was like, that was a gig where I was panicking because I'd gone in hard and then had nowhere to go. That was a funny gig, that one.
Well, it is how it is,
amazing.
Isn't it?
Hills is amazing.
Yeah. Let's move on to Edinburgh, the Edinburgh Fringe. I think you know this. I spend my holidays at the Edinburgh Fringe. I go there for a week, and I see about 50 shows. I'm very lucky to be able to do that, but I've been going since 2005, and I need a holiday by the time I come back. I'm absolutely shattered, but I love doing it. Your very first Edinburgh Fringe, what year was that? Was that 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, only a few years ago,
Yeah. So when I saw you do Boy, that was your solo show. Had you done one before then?
Yes, I'd done a split bill before that with Louise Atkinson.
Right.
We'd done a split bill.
Was that your first time there then?
It was, I'm like I said, I'm pretty new on all this, but that was my first time there. And
what did you think of it? What did you think of the experience of it when you went?
The festival as a whole, or just my performance?
Well, your performance, the festival as a whole.
I mean, there's so many hills and there's so much rain. I hated it. I'm like doing squats every day. It's just trying to get up the hills. It was so wet. It's miserable. The food's terrible. No, you know, no. I enjoyed it.
I'll see you next year.
You know, I did. Me and Lou were doing. We did a split bill at the Three Sisters, which is on Cowgate.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's kind of the strip of Edinburgh, I guess, isn't it? And that pub in particular is quite a loud pub.
Yeah.
And we were in the Wee Room, which is essentially a karaoke.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, have you been in the Wee Room?
Yeah.
Okay,
I've been all over. I know it all. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were in there, and it's hard not, you know, literally it's a karaoke booth, and there's days when you're going in and you're on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's been chucking it down with rain.
Yeah.
They're sat on stalls, and there's no back to the stalls, so they're just sat there for an hour, just rigid. They still got their control on. They're dripping with water. Sometimes English is their second language, and it's just a guy talking about chicken nuggets. Like the whole thing is ridiculous, but I loved it, and you learn so much. And I remember that first Edinburgh coming back, and I had a couple of promoters say to me, like, "Oh, like you've come back a bit different. Like you've learned, you know, you just seem different." So it's definitely, for anyone that's thinking of doing it, like if I don't know who's watching this, Rich, but if it's newer acts and stuff, it's 1,000% you should do it. Like
without a doubt,
real learning curve, and just going out, like I say, it's going out in that room, in that environment, that tiny little room with different people from everywhere around the world. Just juggling that, you're only going to get better, aren't you?
Exactly. It's all about experience again, isn't it? Yeah. And in 2019, I was determined and delighted to see your solo show, Boy, at the Edinburgh Fringe there. It was the last one of my 50 shows, or however many I'd seen. And I was determined to see it. And I've never seen anyone look so elated to see me. Describe your writing process for that show, please, and how do you get your ideas?
Describe my writing process.
Yeah. How do you go about writing your ideas?
So honestly, that show was a work in progress. I didn't really bill it as that.
Right.
And probably the writing process for that show was a little bit too late. I remember 2 weeks before, sat in my flat with my brother, and he was like, "What's the show?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he had like a pinboard.
That's a great title.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And he had like a pinboard, and I was just, because the way I work is I'll do material, and it just kind of happens, kind of thing. I'm not really write it down. So then we had this pinboard, and we were just like writing subjects down and trying to make a thing out of it.
Right.
But the thing is, it was a work in progress show, which is the nature of it. You're meant to kind of find it and tune it and work on it every day. So every day it was different, and I really enjoyed that part of it. Like every day, and I worked quite closely. Like Ross Smith was there, and he was, I don't know if you know, so he was there, and he was kind of helping me, and he would come in every day. "Oh, what are we doing today?" And we would just tweak it, and we just sort of work on it. So the writing process was quite natural, I guess, with it, but it was probably 6 months too late.
Did you enjoy the experience of having your own show?
I did, yeah. Edinburgh's hard. I can't remember what day you saw it on, Rich.
Last day. I think
it
was your last day. It was my last day. It was my last show. It was a Sunday night, and you admitted to me when you were performing it, you were hungover.
Yeah.
But I couldn't work it out.
Right, that's good. Yeah, because I think the night before then, if that was the Sunday, I think the night before was the big party at the Gilded Balloon. So we all go to the Gilded Balloon, and everyone gets. I'm
very pleased I saw it.
I don't know. Yeah, it was all a learning curve, but yeah, having your own shows, it's, you know, I watched before I done this one, which I watched Lenny's one quick, and he was talking about going out and just going out cold and just having to open a show, and that's your show, and you're the only actor on. You're not on a mixed bill. It's not a club night. Yeah. It's not a Friday night. It's a Monday. And it's at 5 o'clock whenever my show was. Yeah. It's a Monday night, 5 o'clock, and you're the only person. That that teaches you something, Rich, and you've really got to dig deep sometimes. It's hard. So yes, it's a learning curve. Yeah, definitely a learning curve.
I saw a Lenny Sherman show the same year as yours, and he ran on, and there was balloons going off and party poppers and everything to really get the crowd going, to kick it all off. And I think that's the key to it. You've got to get the audience within a minute of going on stage, and you can do that effortlessly. You're very, very good at engaging with a crowd. And okay, Josh, so the next question, you delivered a wonderful routine at the auditions for Britain's Got Talent in 2020.
Yeah.
How did you decide to appear? Why did you decide to appear to go on the TV show? And what was the experience like for you?
So how that came about was when we were talking about the Muse Moose final.
Yeah.
So Hills Jago runs that. She's amazing. She wants to promote you. Your new act. She wants to put you out there. So she does a night where she, like an industry showcase essentially. And I did that in London, and that went well. And I had a few messages after, and one of them was from a guy from Thames Talk. Right. And anyway, long story short, that kind of ended up being Britain's Got Talent. And I said no the first year, and I said no again the second year, and they were quite persistent and they kept going. But I wasn't too sure about it. But the thing that turned it around, to be honest, Rich, was I had a chat with my mum, and she said this thing, right, and this was why I did it. She said this sentence. She went, "It's all part of life's rich tapestry," right? And that is why I did it, right? Because I was like, yeah, it's true. Like when you think about it, it's a huge show and it's a big audience. And it's like what people don't realise, and I really got into this as well. Was kind of the challenge of it. It was like you're going out in front of 2,000 people, one of the biggest shows in the country, and they can gong you off at any moment. And Simon Cowell is known for not liking stand-up comedy on the show.
Yeah.
And also, like, you're in between, like there'll be a woman before you who's singing about her husband that's died of cancer, and then after you, there's a dance troupe that all have disabilities or whatever. It's just a mad experience. And I remember thinking, what a challenge! Like, I'd only been in stand-up at that point for 2 years, and I remember thinking, what a stage, what a challenge, what an opportunity, and like I say, they were asking me to do it, and I thought, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. And
I've done it, and it was great. I loved it. I've had a few comedians message me since, and I recommend it. I do think do it. It's a test and it's fun. And
what was particularly impressive was how effortless you were with them. They seemed to absolutely love you. You could do no wrong. And tell me again, the reason for not continuing was it to do with the live audiences? There was no live audience because of COVID. Is that?
Yeah. So essentially, that was what kind of was annoying about it. It fell into the first lockdown. So when it came out, it came in lockdown, and there was at the time there's a lot of sort of, I don't know what you're allowed to talk about, we're not allowed to talk about, but there was a lot of sort of back and forth, and is it happening, is it not happening, what we do. There's a lot of phone calls, and in the end there was it kind of become down to they were doing the semi-finals with no audience, and as a comedian you need an audience.
Of course.
It was a kind of a weird period, but like I say, I don't know what, I know at the time, I don't know what you're allowed to talk about, we're not allowed to talk about, Rich. I'm probably I'm not the best.
Would you do it again because of the circumstances you were in? They asked you.
Like I say, it fell into this whole sort of lockdown and COVID stuff. The one I loved it. It was such a buzz. It was such an experience, and it's a 12-hour day, which you don't realise. Wow. You just appear there, but all day you're shooting. I did 2 days as well, which so I did London at the Palladium. I did Manchester as well. And they take you up to Manchester and you're shooting and you're doing this. It's a great experience.
What it has done is get you noticed nationally as well, because it's on the television. It's on the television,
and I've had emails from New Zealand so many mad things, but like I say, just fell in this weird window of lockdown, and you don't really know what was to come of it. But so you just got to take the experience for what it was. And like I say, I really enjoyed it, and I'd recommend it to anyone, because I had a lot of hesitation before I did it, because like a lot of comics, I'd never watched Britain's Got Talent, to be honest with you. Like a lot of comics, you sort of turn your nose up at it, and I don't know, but I think the person that changed that was Kojo. Right. Kojo did it before, and that's a legit guy, and he kind of changed, I think, a lot of people's opinion on it. So, but yeah, it was a good experience.
Well, good on you for doing it, and I wish you every success with it. How do you remember all your routines? Have you got a way of remembering them? Do you have points in your head as you go along, or do you just wing it?
I don't.
You don't?
I forget more stuff than I remember, to be honest with you.
Let's see what happens tonight.
I remember. I had a weird thing where I was at a gig, and someone said to me, I was like, "Oh, you do that grinding bit, like a bit about grinding at nightclubs," and I was like, "What?" What? And he was like, "Yeah, you do that bit." I was like, "No, that's not me." And he explained it to me, and I remembered that I did do it, because basically when I do new material, like I don't really write it down, so I just kind of think about it in my head before I go there, and I'll do it. And then what happens is I won't have another new material gig for a week or 2 weeks, and I'll have forgotten what I said 2 weeks ago. So he said that to me. He's like, "You do that bit about the grinding thing," and then anyway, so like the next night or 2 nights later, I was at Leicester Square. I was at Museum of Comedy doing the Leicester Square new comedian thing.
Know it well, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember I was like sat there. I was like, I might do that grinding bit. I was like in the semi-finals, and I was like, I might do that grinding bit, because that guy had reminded me of it. And I went out and I did it, and it went really well. And I got through to the finals because of that bit. And they said to me, "Oh, when you're in the final, make sure you do that bit." So then from then on, I was like, I need to start recording my sets and like make a note of it, because I don't have any recollection of what I'm doing. So from then on, now I record my sets, and I'm very much more like make notes, and I'm very studious about it. But for a long time, I wasn't. I was just sort of
winging it. Good lad. What ambitions, if any, do you have as a comedian? Would you like a chat show? Would you like would you like to play live at the Apollo? Do you want to be on TV? Are you happy with your lot touring?
I mean, like obviously everyone, TV touring, selling out the O2, all that stuff sounds amazing. Yeah. For me, like I love stand up, and I love even just club comedy. Like that's almost become a little bit of a thing now, where it's like club comedy is something almost you turn your nose up at. I don't know, but I just want to get good and just be like headline comic and have longevity as well. Like just be really good for a long time, because it's a weird time, especially now the way everything's gone. You don't know where it's all going.
I've genuinely, mate, I've seen so many over the years, and you know this. There is something there with you. You are very, very endearing and engaging on stage, which can only make an audience like what you have to say. And if you're funny on top of that, which you inevitably are, the sky's your limit.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Yeah, well, that's very kindly, Rich, but I don't know. I think you fancy me.
No, I certainly don't do that. But I'm talking in comedian's terms.
For me, like everything's a plus. Like I say, it's just I love doing stand-up. So for me, it's like someone offered you a TV show, great, but it's just get better at stand-up, be a better stand-up. That's all I want.
Yeah. As you say, we're all living in strange times. It's a horrible, horrible year, 18 months. How have you found online gigs as opposed to live gigs?
So I haven't actually done any.
I haven't done any of them. Oh, right.
No.
Right.
So when it first came about in lockdown 1, I said no. I got offered a lot of gigs, Zoom gigs, and I said no, because to be honest with you, every comedian's going to say the same thing. It's not the same. It's not the substitute. You don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So I said no, and then and then a year passed, and then I wish I hadn't said no to all those gigs, because like now I've sort of, I don't do them.
Well, that's your decision. That's fair enough. You're not alone in thinking that, because comedians have had to adapt to a very intimate space where which is not the norm, because your comedians are very visual, or can be very visual, and the live experience, you never know what you're going to get next, whereas in a Zoom call, it is a good substitute. It's certainly gotten me through lockdown online comedy, but I miss going out on a Saturday night, having a few beers, and then going to a comedy show.
Yeah, I think now, like I say, initially I said no. Now I'm starting to, I think I'm going to get some in the next few months, especially because I've got material and stuff I want to put out there.
Right.
But like, obviously, as someone that's been watching them, do you, one, enjoy them? And two, what style do you think it suits? Because to me in my head, because I've not even watched one, I'll feel like it would suit more of a joke teller, like a Mark Simmons, or, like a Jimmy Carr,
Well, the regular one I go to is Always Be Comedy Online.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how James does that, the compare, is he'll have 200 or 300 people watching that are not seen and not heard, and then he'll have what's called a virtual front row, which has got me on it and 20 other people on it that he can chat to, and they laugh, and because they're laughing, it helps the comedians no end that there's somebody laughing at them. And he gets all sorts. He gets jokers, pun tellers, storytellers. Everybody goes on. They're all new acts and all older acts as well, established acts. And it sometimes, the majority of the time, it works very, very well. But you have to get used to you're talking to a screen. Certainly, when I first started going to online gigs, there was no audio, so I was just laughing. I was going bananas laughing, and nobody could hear, and I was laughing at four walls, and then I thought I'm going to be taken away. But when he opened up the audio, it was so much better, and I think a lot of them do that. You've got Sean James doing Happy Mondays. You've got Jarlath Regan doing Return of the Crake. They're all really good hour 15 shows where you've got 4 or 5 acts on, and but of course you're relying on Zoom all the time. So it is better than nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I need to.
Beat live.
Early days, I was just like biding my time. Yeah. I mean, I did when we had that brief window where we was allowed out, I did the sort of pub garden gigs and the car park gigs. I did those because I was just sort of interested of how it works with. I don't know if my style would work just to a camera.
It would definitely, because give it a go. And you can do 1 or 2, and if it's not for you, it's not for you. But having seen you so many times deliver a great set, I think you'd be very good at doing it.
Yeah, I think, now, like I say, now it's gone on longer, I just need to do it. But I've kind of been, my lockdown's been more focusing on writing, planning, plotting. So, all good.
It's time to do it, my friend. Who are your favourite comedians, past or present?
Like I said earlier, Peter Kay was a big influence to me when I was really young. He was kind of the first stand-up I guess I saw and I watched religiously. And did I mention earlier I got into like Chris Rock and Def Jam and stuff like that. Yeah, brilliant. When I was like 13, 14, I really got into Bernie Mac and Chris Tucker and a lot of the American guys so it'd be Peter Kay when I was really young. When I was sort of 13, 14, it was kind of Chris Rock. I saw Chris Rock at the when I saw Chris Rock at the O2, I was like 15 years old, and it was the O2, and he came out, he did 2 hours, he didn't have an interval, and he didn't have a sip of water. Wow. He just picked the mic up, spoke for 2 hours, no encore, no nothing, just talked for 2 hours, and he was gone. Wow. And that was a moment, I remember just being sat there, like everyone was sat there just like, fuck just happened there? Like, it was a real moment. So that was a big thing for me doing that. But of recent years, when I was, the one thing I've always thought about, and I didn't know who this person was, right? So when I was 18, I think, I can't remember what I was at the store, I think, or somewhere in London, and I saw this guy, and he come out, and he was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. He'd done 20 minutes and just destroyed, right? People, so funny. And it was a different sort of gig, because like when you see Chris Rock, you have expectation. You know what you're going to go see. You buy it. It's a big room. It's a different sort of environment. He's doing 2 hours. This guy just come out and spoke for 20 minutes, tore the roof off, and then just disappeared into the night, right? And then 10 years later, I was at a gig watching a mate. It might have been Lou, and it's Paul Tonkinson.
Oh, he's brilliant. He's so good. And I tell you something, he's supported me doing this. What a really genuinely good bloke he is. He's hilarious with the looks and routine. They're very visual as well. Physical, funny, just dominates. And that was a guy, like I say, that was probably the last guy, like years ago, that I was just like, Jesus Christ, who's that? Like, so he was a guy. He's brilliant. The Americans that you were talking about, I was very lucky to see Bill Hicks in Manchester. And he was outstanding as well. He was really good. And
when was that?
That would be 1998, 9, something like that.
Right.
It was on his Just a Ride tour.
Is that with a cowboy hat and all that stuff?
Yeah, he was brilliant. And when I was at college, similar to your 2-hour set and no sip of water, we saw Ben Elton at college, and then I saw him again in Carlisle, and then a week later we saw Rick Mail, and he was amazing. He was absolutely amazing. So,
who's your favourite now, Rich, like on the scene at the moment?
Now, I would say Paul McCaffrey, I think, is very funny. Josh Widdicombe's very funny. Kerry Godliman, I love. Jem Brister, I love. Romesh can do no wrong. I think he's great. And the ones that are coming up, there's Lily Phillips, who's been on this. There's Vix Layton, who's been on this. All really good quality comedians. So good on you. Like me, do you go to a lot of comedy gigs as a member of the audience?
Since I've started doing it, obviously up in Edinburgh, I'll go see. Obviously, I see my friend shows, so I see a lot of my friend shows. But like last Edinburgh, I saw like Frank Skinner, I saw Tom Stade. I got involved and saw those shows. And I actually have, like, weirdly, I've had a few nights where I've just been like my mum's come up to see me, and I've been should we go Covent Garden, or should we go to Angel or whatever, and I'll just take her to a club. So I have seen a lot more stand up now than I ever had.
That's brilliant, because normally they say no, they don't do that.
But I think it's I get it. Like, I do get like I've actually made a rule now, so I don't watch stand up at all anymore. So I won't watch I used to watch, like, if something come on Netflix, or if I'd watch something. I don't watch any stand up anymore. That's a rule. But if it's a Friday night and I want to go out in London, then I sort of I see it. I see it now. So it's quite a good night out. It's fun, and you know the people and stuff. So it's good.
If you're on a bill, will you stay and watch the other acts?
100%. Even if sometimes obviously you can't, if you're up north or something, you can't, but I always try and stay. I'm not one of these comics, like everyone's different. I can't be one of these comics that flies in 5 minutes before my set and leaves, or sits backstage the entire time and pretends like it's not happening. For me to be the best on stage, I have to go out and I'll stand at the back. So I stand at the back and just soak it all up and try and enjoy it. Like, it's always going to be funnier. For me, I think it's always going to be better if you do that. If you're acting like, if you're in the back, like sometimes you're sat out back with comedians and like they're the nicest people, but you're sat there chatting about the M25. And you go down there to make people laugh. Like, come on, like, so I sometimes think that you're like, there's a whole theatre of people out there having the night of their lives. Like, go get involved. So that's kind of my sort of thing with it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Just before we go, is there anything else you would like to say? Have you got any online gigs? Are you doing any writing? Where can people find you on social media? Anything like that?
Yeah, so like obviously it's a weird time.
Yeah.
So my thing is Josh B Comedy. So my website's Josh B Comedy, my socials, everything's Josh B Comedy. I started doing more content towards the end of last year, like TikToks. My TikTok numbers are doing well, so you can see me on any of those. And yeah, so next year, when we get that,
I'm not cool. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. But next year, if it all goes well, Rich, I'll have my show.
Yes.
Edinburgh. I'm going to do some. It's not just Edinburgh. I'm going to do a few things with it. So
good lad.
Yeah. So things but it's a weird time. So at some point,
it is weird. But please keep doing what you're doing, because you're a very funny man, and I wish you every success. I really do.
I appreciate that. I don't think I've ever spoke about myself for so long.